Good morning, everyone, on this nice Monday morning, and just wanted to share with you the daily question answers if there were any that you were curious about. Um, to start off with, name one of the scientists who first proposed that the Earth revolved around the sun. People thought before that the sun revolved around the Earth. Now, I was actually originally thinking of two famous scientists, one by the name of Copernicus, Nicholas Copernicus, he was from Poland, and the other one was Galileo, who was from Italy. They both had the aid of a telescope, um, and they started to notice some things that seemed to suggest that the Earth actually was moving and not the sun. Um, Interestingly enough, I did have one student who found an ancient Greek, which would have been 2,000 years before these two guys. I can't remember the name, but the student who had that answer, I did mark that as correct because that person also put forth the idea. Um, that idea was not very popular, especially with the church. Many church leaders felt that the idea of the earth going around the sun contradicted the creation story. So both Copernicus and Galileo got in lots of trouble with the church, had their lives threatened. Um, Now, obviously, over history, church and science have agreed to figure out how those can both exist. But it was an interesting time for both of them because obviously we know now they were both right. The capital of Belgium, the country where Rivka spent so much time, is the city of Brussels. Also worth noting, Belgium, I feel like kind of quietly right now is one of the countries with that's really struggling with the COVID-19 virus. We heard a lot about Italy, we heard a lot about Spain. Brussels is actually experiencing a probably larger problem just in a smaller country. So, question 113 is about Ayers Rock. So I threw a picture in here. Um, Obviously, you can see why this is a interesting landform because here it is in the middle of what is otherwise a huge flat area, and all of a sudden there's this gigantic piece of rock. Um, this is located in Australia, and it's located out in the western part of Australia where you can see there's not a lot of people living around there, um, but it's a pretty unique landform. The deadliest earthquake in U.S. history happened in San Francisco in 1906. Some of you found earthquakes in China. That's obviously not in the United States. Some of you had, some of the earthquakes in Alaska have been stronger, but probably due to the fact that there's less people, they killed far fewer people. This one, the death toll was well into the thousands. A number of things that triggered a fire, which burned down much of the city, and also they had built a lot of San Francisco on dirt they had dug up from other places and then kind of dumped in the ocean to build land. And what they found is when the ground starts to shake, that makes those areas turn into like liquid, and buildings just tumble much more quickly. Mount Rushmore, the famous South Dakota statue of the presidents. We have George Washington. We have Thomas Jefferson. We have Abraham Lincoln. And we have Teddy Roosevelt. Now, some might question Roosevelt's place there, but he was a huge push for preserving national lands. He was a very powerful president, got a lot done as well, but that was why he was put on this monument with otherwise three of our older presidents. So. Number 116, which U.S. state has been hit the hardest by the COVID-19 outbreak? It's not even close. New York has far more deaths. At one point it was almost half of the deaths in the country were in that one state. And actually the other states that are struggling with it the most are mostly neighbors of New York: New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island. So the outbreak in that area has been much, much worse. A country where I could find a tundra biome, and no, Lambeau Field doesn't count. I threw that in here because people often call Lambeau the frozen tundra. The reason for that, a tundra is a grassland area. It does not support trees, and it stays frozen most of the year. It will occasionally thaw, but that's pretty unusual. So you will find that in the United States, but not in Green Bay, but in Alaska. You'll find it in Canada, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and a lot of it in Russia. Now, there are other places you will find it up in mountain areas. As you go up mountains, you can sometimes see like where the tree line stops. That's called alpine tundra. So some of you had those answers, and those were fine too. This question was on your immigration worksheet, but where would we find Ellis Island today? It's in what state? I would accept New York or New Jersey. It's off the coast of both of those states. I think it belongs to New York State, but it might actually just be federal property, meaning it belongs to the United States and neither state. So New York or New Jersey. Number 119 has lots of possible answers. Just understand that you had to have two countries must be on different continents. So a South American country, an African country, an Asian country, you had to have one from each. If you put two from the same continent, then you would have lost half a point. And then the poem on the Statue of Liberty is something called The New Colossus. And it was by Emma Lazarus. And actually starting tomorrow in ELA, we will be doing a couple of activities with that poem. It's called The New Colossus. All right, so there are your answers. If you had any questions, please let me know.